Whenever you redistribute income, you reduce total income. If I tax people who work and I pay people who don't work, do I need to say the next sentence to you? You're going to get a lot of people not working. Now, very simply, redistribution is when you take from someone who has a little bit more and you give it to someone who has a little bit less. What you're doing is redistributing income from the person who has a little bit more and giving it to a person who has a little bit less. That is redistribution. Now, when you take from someone who has a little bit more, you reduce that person's incentives to produce. And that person will produce a little bit less. In other words, when you take from someone through a tax, when you take from someone who has a little bit more, that person's incentives are reduced and that person will produce a little bit less than he or she otherwise would have produced, period. Number two, when you give to someone who has a little bit less, you provide that person with an alternative source of income other than working, and that person too will produce a little bit less than he or she otherwise would have produced. The theorem here is really very straightforward and very simple. Whenever you redistribute incomes, you always reduce total income, period.
Redistribution of wealth, Arthur Laffer's always been very suspicious of that, because what welfare spending does, as he's said many times, is, okay, you take from people who have a lot, okay, but what are they doing with that extra money? Those people who have a lot, the last dollar they have is the dollar that they are most risky with, usually. And dollars that rich people are most risky with, usually, in many cases, result in the enterprises which transform life in the next generation. So you're taking about the most powerful dollar you could in this economy and then giving it to people to encourage them not to work. So it's a kind of a double supply-side undercutting of the economy.
By taxing people who work, you reduce their incentives to hire people. And by paying people who don't work, you reduce their incentives to produce work, and so you're going to reduce total work effort in the system. The more you redistribute income, the greater will be the decline in total income. If you are able to redistribute all income so that everyone comes out exactly the same, if you're able to do that, there will be no income whatsoever. In order to have everyone come out exactly the same, what you have to do is you have to tax everyone who makes above the average income 100% of the excess. And you have to subsidize everyone below the average income up to the average income. That's the only way you're going to get everyone to come out exactly equal. Those people who make more than the average have to be taxed right down to the average, and those people who make less than the average have to be subsidized right up to the average. Now, if you actually really did that, if you actually taxed everyone who made above the average income 100% of the excess, and if you actually did subsidize everyone below the average income up to the average income, I'll stipulate today, counselor, all incomes will be exactly the same, and they will be at zero. There will be no incentive for anyone to ever produce any goods and services, so total goods and service production will be exactly equal. That is the theorem, pure and simple.